Tonight, someone you know is going to die. Not tonight specifically, but at some point, someone close to you will be gone. And when that happens, you will do something strange. You will gather people together. You will speak words out loud to a body that cannot hear them. You will bury that body, or burn it, or place it somewhere sacred. You will cry, and then you will eat food together. And none of that will feel strange to you at all. But it should, because no other animal on this planet does any of that. And the fact that you do, that tells you something enormous about who you actually are. The real answer to what ancient humans did when someone died is far stranger, far older, and far more revealing than any history book will tell you. Your ancestors have been burying their dead for at least 300,000 years. That number sounds abstract. So let's make it real. The agricultural revolution happened roughly 12,000 years ago. Writing was invented about 5,000 years ago. The Roman Empire rose and fell within the last 2,000 years. And yet, 300,000 years before any of that, a group of early humans in what is now South Africa were carefully carrying their dead into a deep underground cave. Not because they had to, because they chose to. The site is called Rising Star Cave in the Cradle of Humankind. In 2015, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger and his team discovered something that shook the scientific world. Deep inside a nearly inaccessible chamber, reachable only by squeezing through a narrow underground chute, they found the bones of Homo naledi, a small-brained hominin who lived before our species even existed. The bones were not the remains of people who had fallen in by accident. They were deliberately placed there, over and over again, across many generations. This was not a species with large brains. This was not a species that we previously assumed capable of symbolic thought. And yet, they were burying their dead. They were returning to the same underground space, again and again, to lay their companions to rest. The question that kept researchers awake is the same question that should keep you awake. Why? What were they feeling when they did it? Here is what we know. The instinct to do something with a dead body is not uniquely human. Elephants will stand over the bones of their dead relatives for hours, touching the skull gently with their trunks, sometimes returning to the same bones year after year. Chimpanzees have been observed carrying their dead infants for weeks after death, refusing to put them down. Crows will hold what researchers describe as funeral-like gatherings around a fallen member of their flock, standing in a silent circle, sometimes for several minutes, before flying away. Something about confronting death triggers behavior in many animals that looks, from the outside, like grief. But your ancestors took it further, much further. Around 100,000 years ago, Neanderthals, the close cousins of modern humans, began burying their dead with objects. At a site in Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq, archaeologist Ralph Selecki discovered Neanderthal burials in the 1950s and 1960s that showed something startling. Pollen was found in enormous concentrations around one burial. Selecki argued the dead had been laid to rest on a bed of flowers: yarrow, groundsel, grape hyacinth. This interpretation has been debated for decades since. Some researchers argue the pollen arrived through other means, but what remains undisputed is that the body was carefully positioned. The grave was intentional. The placement was deliberate. Think about what that means. A species that was not quite us, with a brain structured differently from yours, looked at a dead companion and felt something strong enough to make them stop, to prepare the body, to place it with care, to return to the spot. Whatever was happening inside that Neanderthal skull, it was not nothing. By the time Homo sapiens arrived, death had become ritual, and ritual had become technology. 40,000 years ago, in what is now the Czech Republic, 3 children were buried together in a single grave at a site called Dolní Věstonice. Their bodies were covered in red ochre, a pigment made from iron-rich clay, ground into powder, and deliberately applied. One of the children had been placed with a hand resting on the body of another. On top of them, a mammoth shoulder blade had been laid as a kind of covering. Researchers have spent decades trying to reconstruct what this moment looked like. Who performed it? What words, if any, were spoken? What they believed would happen next. And that is the key word. Believed. Because the moment humans began burying their dead with care, with ochre, with food, with tools, with flowers, they were not just managing a body. They were making a statement about what they thought death was. They were expressing a belief that something continues, that the dead person still matters, that there is somewhere to go